And then what does this mean for application developer? Mobile malware right now in its current form is end user problem. It is not a problem for people creating applications because, hey, you're not creating malware, so why should you care that somebody else creates a malware? However, for software vendor, the malware does cause indirect damage. First of all, malware authors love to Trojanize applications. The more popular the application, the more likely it is to be Trojanized. But sometimes they also pick rather unknown applications. And if your application is being used on Trojanizing, it means that you are going to suffer PR damage. Are the people who are being hit by a Trojan likely to install your software again, even as it would be a clean version? Or if there is warning on Postimees about the Trojan, and then there is your application screenshot. That doesn't look nice either. So, while malware authors are targeting your potential users, it means that they are causing PR, public relations damage to you. Also, other problems that mobile malware cause is that first of all, as the malware gets more advanced, they will try to steal user accounts and user information from third-party applications, just like they do on PC. For example, on PC, if you get infected, the malware will try to steal your iTunes password, your Google password, your Skype password, your Facebook password, and everything else related to your online identity, because all of that is valuable on either to be sold onwards or spreading malware to your friends. And of course, one very personal attack against mobile developers is that malware authors want to steal your identity as a software developer so that they can push malware to all of your users. Your identity is very valuable, not only to you, but for somebody who would like to abuse it. And let's see what we can do about to prevent that. First of all, you cannot prevent somebody from Trojanizing your application. Doesn't matter which platform. All software can be reverse engineered and all software can be modified. And since malware authors are using different developer certificate, the digital signature does not help either. But while you cannot fully prevent modifying your application so that it has been Trojanized, you can make Trojanizing difficult, which does mean that malware authors, especially if they download 200 applications and try to Trojanize those with a script, they will notice that your application doesn't work, they will throw it away and take something else. Malware authors are after return on investment, and malware that is difficult to Trojanize gives bad return on investment unless it happens to be really, really popular one, like Skype client. Nothing which is obviously being attacked much heavier than some less known application. But you can do quite many things to make it more difficult for malware authors. First of all, add checksum codes into your code to check whether your application has been modified since you released it. And if so, your application should refuse to start or say that this installation has been corrupted and please uninstall it and take a newer version. And technically how this can be done is that put checksum checks in your code, preferably on several locations, to check the integrity of classes of DEX or then the iPhone application's main binary. Also check what is your application vendor ID and your application developer certificate. And that if that is different than you are using, your application has no point trying to start. This is also a rather effective copy protection. Use obfuscator to make it as difficult as possible to find a good injection spot in your code and have as much of your code as possible in native binary. And all of this also means that all of these are also important if you happen to need copy protections, because whatever techniques are good for copy protections are good to make it Trojanizing difficult for your application. And also one other thing you should do is to have an automated search on Google Play to see any new applications with words containing your application name. Because you want to see if somebody else is trying to steal your identity, and then you can immediately complain to Google, Apple, Amazon, or any other big application store. Do be aware how your company looks to outside world. Also, you do need to protect your data. Currently, the malware on Android and Android platforms still only basic data provided by Android operating system. But with time, this will change because all data is valuable. And that means that you want to make the data stealing as difficult as possible. The first thing you need to do is that you set the permissions to read and write to your data files only to your applications using the Android operating system security controls, because by default they are readable by quite many other user accounts. Also remember that whatever you write to SD card can always be read with a PC, no matter whether you have permissions there or not. That doesn't apply for technical attacks, but if somebody is trying to get data from the phone, that does. Which means that you should always crypt all data being stored. Use unique per user key derived from user ID or something else that stays static even if user changes their phone. And this way, malware has to know the algorithm and the method you are using to encrypt it and reverse that engineer that on the fly, which is much more difficult. And do not log any user-specific data, because logs can be read by other applications. Altogether, anything that is user-specific and user's private information should not be logged and should not be sent upstream. If you need to send some information about your users upstream, hash it so that you can identify the user, but even you don't know the exact information. So the better you protect the user information, the more difficult it is to steal, and more likely it is that you don't get into a nasty PR-related incidents. Public relations hurts when it's about problems. And also you need to make sure that you protect your developer identity. Popular developer account is a goldmine for malware author. Because if malware author gets your developer ID, password and your keys, they can use malware to all of your end users. And that means that you need to make sure that your Mac or PC is well secured. Run a security suite, preferably F-Secure Internet Security or Corporate Security, but any other reputable vendor goes as well. Have all security updates in place, and if you can manage it or you can afford it, have a separate computer to do signing and application publishing, or a virtual machine that is used only for this purpose. And this way, and do not use that computer for anything else. And this way, if your development computer gets infected, the malware author cannot steal your keys because they are not physically on that computer. They are on a separate system that only receives APKs. Well, theoretically there might be attacks against that, but it makes stealing your identity so much more difficult that the malware authors are going to go for an easier target. Remember, with security, when there is money in the game, there's always going to be crime. The only thing you can do is that you are difficult enough target so that the criminals go elsewhere.